Welcome into another edition of Target Score Winnipeg. I'm Joey Slattery, flying solo this week. Taylor Allen's still out there in Japan enjoying the rest of his trip, so we figured we'll give him this week off. Maybe next week, and once he's back, looking forward to having him back full time. But want to make sure he's enjoying his trip out there. I know he's tuning in, so Taylor, hope you're enjoying the rest of your trip out there. Want to apologize for those watching on YouTube. My normal camera's not working, so I'm on the laptop cam. So still think it looks okay though, but that's just want to apologize for that. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on podcast, really happy to have you along on this week's edition. Just a reminder that you can follow us on YouTube. If you're not on the YouTube portion of this show, if you're listening on podcast, great to take with you. Love the audio version. But you're missing out if you're not on the YouTube version. So check out the YouTube page at Target Score Podcast is the tag, or the whatever is our name on YouTube, at Target Score Podcast. And if you're not following us on Instagram, you're missing out there as well, at Target Score WPG, at Target Score WPG on Instagram. That's where we share all of the signings and things that are happening between episodes. And also, the training camp reports have been posted there, along as on my Instagram account at Joey Slattery TV. So make sure that you're signed up, turn on the notifications, subscribe to YouTube, follow the channels, and make sure you're never missing out. Later on this show, we are going to have Paul Sir come on. Paul Sir is the color analyst for the Edmonton Stingers, and he's a great basketball mind. He worked for years as the head of Basketball Alberta. Now he's big time involved globally when it comes to 3x3. We'll talk a little bit about that in the interview, about his shift from going from the 5-on-5 game as a provincial body head to kind of go into the global aspect of things, and how he wants to grow that sport of 3x3 and kind of see them as two, good options for basketball. They're two different versions, but I think they're effective avenues for players to, pursue pro careers and playing internationally and all that stuff. It was a great conversation. And of course, we tee up Friday's season opener for the Sea Bears. It's also the home opener where they welcome the Edmonton Stingers. Edmonton Stingers have been a pain in their side, to put it lightly. I think it's a 5-2 all-time record, and Edmonton has really had their way with Winnipeg at home, particularly Winnipeg breaking the curse, if you will, last year in the last game where they finally beat Edmonton at home. So they do have the one win, trying to shift momentum with a new look team. And that's where we're going to kind of transition here, is into the training camp updates. This is a brand new team. This is a team that's much bigger than last year. And one of the big things that really pops out to me is there's no big personalities this year that at least are apparent off the top, right? You're not seeing the presence of someone, say like a Teddy Allen or an EJ Anasike, even a Chad Posthumous, those big personalities. That's not a negative connotation by any stretch. There's just those people that can walk into a room or walk into the gym, and there's kind of that, you can feel the presence, just from a character standpoint, not necessarily what they're doing on the floor. And, I haven't really noticed that this year. It seems like there's a lot of guys that are a little quieter, but very hardworking. That's the one thing that we keep hearing from the players and the coaches, is there's a work ethic to this team that, I'm not going to say it's been missing in the past, but it's really evident here with this team. And it's going to be needed. This is a team that has been designed to play in a feeding system. There's not going to be, Mike Taylor has said time and time again, they're getting away from the star mentality. They want an offense where everybody's getting involved, and you're not just trying to build it around one player and getting the one player opportunities, as we've seen with, Teddy Allen in the last 2 years. And once Teddy left last year, had Justin Wright Foreman kind of, take over that role. So that was one of the things that, it's kind of noticeable early, along with the size, a much bigger team this year. So you get the impression that they're going to be a team that's, going to be playing big inside. And that's an area where they've struggled in the past in the post game, and, battling down in the paint with teams like Vancouver, Edmonton. So that is something that I think Winnipeg might actually have an advantage this year, as opposed to the last 2 years. One of the other things too is the starters, right? Everybody's been asking, who do you think is going to be starting? And with the whole new philosophy with the Sea Bears, it does kind of seem like, that's, we're not quite sure. It kind of felt like in the first 2 years, you had a pretty strong idea of who was going to be starting and who would be the reserves. But Mike Taylor put an interesting, connotation on it in the sense that they're not really calling it starters or, reserves. It's more of lineups, kind of borrowing the hockey term on this. Him and his staff really working everybody through in different scenarios. They're trying to set themselves up, it seems, where whatever scenario pops up, they've got players that can slide in to, attack that situation in the game. I mean, during scrimmages and, drills, there'd be times where you're looking at pretty much everyone, right? There's, you'll see some of the guys that might be U Sports guys that are going in there for a couple of reps, and they're going up against guys that, have G League experience on the other side. And there's a bit of a mix and match in terms of, who's going out there. So there is an opportunity for everybody, including the U Sports players, mainly Mason Krause and Jeffrey James. Jeffrey James being the first round pick, Mason Krause, the University of Manitoba product, being the second round pick. But Mike Taylor has talked about how they will be a part of the rotation. In fact, I had a story on that during the training camp report. We'll play it right now of just the opportunity at hand for those players. The U Sports Draft has been a key tool for the Winnipeg Sea Bears in building their roster, and it's already paid off with local star Simon Hildebrandt. He thrived at the pro level, earning back-to-back U Sports Player of the Year honors during Winnipeg's first 2 CEBL seasons. But with Hildebrandt now playing NCAA basketball, a new draft class is ready to seize their opportunity, including his former University of Manitoba teammate, Mason Krause.
We're good friends. We go for walks together with our dogs. He's just a really good guy, and just every story he tells me about Coach Mike and his experience is all positive. Said it's next level for him. It allowed him to take the next step from just being a U Sports guy to being a guy that's seen now as a pro to going to Division I, and just that confidence that he has in Coach Mike and the Seabears organization just boosts me up as well.
Krause, who served as a practice player for the Seabears in 2023, says being drafted in the second round this year has given him a boost of confidence.
It's amazing, just Coach Mike's putting confidence in myself that now I belong. 2 years ago I felt like I was a step behind, I was too slow, and now I feel like with him drafting me, it gives me confidence in myself that he believes in me.
People will look at the proven players in this league, and I think Mason Krause is not far from those guys. I feel like Mason's size at 6'3", his ability to shoot the ball, he has a natural feeling for playing passing lanes and getting steals.
Winnipeg's first-round pick, Jeffrey James, is no stranger to the CEBL. Selected 5th overall by the Seabears after winning a national title with the University of Victoria, James also played 21 games last year for the Edmonton Stingers, scoring in double figures 5 times.
I'm a 25-year-old. I played here before, but as a developmental player, I just like making the younger guys better. But also, the pros who come back and they don't have as much experience in this league is kind of just showing them the ropes.
He's been a rotation player in the CEBL. We know what we're going to get. And we love what he can bring to the team.
And head coach Mike Taylor expects both these guards to have an impact this season.
I think the combination of Jeffrey and Mason coming off the bench gives you basically a 2-point guard lineup that gives, great flexibility.
Rounding out the Seabears draft class is 3rd-round pick Brendan Amoyao from McMaster University. The Winnipeg native and aspiring doctor is excited to learn from his pro teammates while representing his hometown.
It's pretty special for sure, because I've been away since, I think, 2021, so it's been a while since I've been back, so it's really nice to reconnect with, all the guys and just, see my family, of course, so they missed me, so it's nice to see them every day.
We want to put no expectations on him. We want him to come out and develop and grow, but I'll tell you what, like we were saying after this morning's practice, he had great activity level, he had great, work rate. If he can do these things with good players around him, that's all we need him to do.
As training camp continues, these young talents will better understand their roles. But Mike Taylor emphasizes that player development remains the priority, an experience he believes will boost their skills and confidence heading into the winter season. So it'll be interesting to see just how these players are going to be used. Jeffrey James, as mentioned in the story, has CEBL experience with the Stingers, played in a bunch of games, had scored in double figures a bunch of times. And Mason Krause although he hasn't played, was a practice player in 2023. So great opportunity for those guys. This is the end of Jeffrey James in terms of the U Sports development. He's embarking on his pro career. This is really the launching pad for that, whereas Mason Krause is expected to go back to the U of M. So, interested to see also how this experience is going to translate to his play on the floor when he gets back to the Canada West and U Sports competition. But one of the things that, Mike Taylor also said is he feels these teams are very coachable. And that's something that he's emphasized. He likes the spirit, the character of the team as a whole, and their willingness to kind of, learn these new systems. That's another thing with training camp. It's 1 week and it's the same for every team, but it doesn't take away the challenge that you're implementing your systems offensively, defensively, and they've got to learn this real quick because they play, Friday, May 16th is the opener, and they would have only had about 8 days total together, practicing this and still going through the drills and conditioning and all this other stuff, getting used to living in Winnipeg and everything that comes with that. So, it's a challenge as it is, but, Mike Taylor seems confident and happy with the progress that has been made so far and the coachability of these players. Now, sticking with who's going to stick out. I mean, one of the players I think that's kind of grabbed the reins a little bit with expectation in terms of, having the ball in his hands when the game is on the line or when you need a big shot is Tevian Jones. Tevian Jones he has CEBL experience. First off, he played with Scarborough last year. He's a dynamic guard. He's quick. He can attack the rim. He's got some great dunks on the highlight reels. If you look on YouTube, he's a very competitive dude. This is what I've heard from numerous guys on the Sea Bears. This is a guy that, is running full cylinders all the time, wants to win. He had a good campaign with the Grand Rapids Gold of the G League. He's coming off of that season. And he's got summer league experience as well. So this is a guy, he's young, but he's coming in with a ton of experience. He had a great NCAA career. But the key here with him is he has a little bit of familiarity coming into a new team, which is odd. It's not often you get these situations where you're coming to a new team, and having some familiarity with a player that you've played with just recently. And that's what he has with Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams also played with Grand Rapids, and they've developed a bit of a dynamic duo, if you will, between the two of them. They've got some chemistry. They've become close. In fact, I've highlighted a story with them this week in training camp of just, how close they are and how they're kind of leaning on that bond to carry them through training camp. So let's take a look at this report here, highlighting the bond between teammates Jalen Williams and Tevian Jones.
I feel excited, man. These guys are working very hard, competing at the highest level, and everybody on the court is making each other better.
Building team chemistry in just 1 week can be a challenge, but for newcomers Jalen Williams and Tevian Jones, they've had a head start after spending last season together in the NBA's G League.
Yeah, it's really good, being able to play with him and have that chemistry already, and so I think it's going to work really well.
Playing with Tev 50-something games, that's a lot of games. Play with someone, travel on the road, building that chemistry and that bond, that's one of my brothers.
Head coach Mike Taylor has emphasized moving away from a star mentality that defined the team in previous seasons, but believes Jones is the kind of player who can step up when the game is on the line.
Again, we had different personalities in our main player go-to guy role, and Tevian's personality, I think, is outstanding. He's really positive. He's great to be around every single day, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder, plays with an edge.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. I see myself as being that guy, being that team leader, and really just trying to make sure that, making the right plays for the team.
Williams is also expected to play a key role this season, and he says the competition among the team's numerous big men in camp has been intense and believes it will only make the team stronger.
Solomon and Kyler and all those guys, they can play 4 or 5, they can switch out. So them even guarding me has been a challenge, and we've been challenging each other to get better every day.
As for Williams and Jones as a duo, they've developed a strong understanding and appreciation for each other's game.
I think I like the versatility the most, him just being able to play on both ends of the ball, defend, and shoot the rock.
His motor, that he's going 10 all the time. He's going 100% at all times. He's competing at the highest level, and he wants to win.
Taylor says the chemistry shown between the two during camp is undeniable.
Both of these guys have NBA potential, so they're really, really good, and they have that knowledge base and understanding from a lot of basketball situations together. And we've seen it appear in a couple drills and scrimmage situations.
But it's not just their on-court connection that's growing. Since arriving in Winnipeg, the two have further strengthened their friendship off the court.
A little bit, yeah, we definitely talk and we hang out. We actually stay on the same floor, so he comes over and we chop it up, watch some NBA games and stuff, so yeah.
Both say Winnipeg's reputation for a ruckus atmosphere at Seabears home games played a big role in their decision to sign here, and they can't wait to experience it firsthand on Friday.
Friday's going to be a movie, for sure.
Now, I do want to touch a little bit more on Jalen Williams and one of the things that he said in that story about the competition, with the big men. Now, Jalen Williams, another guy, talk about being a dynamic player. This is a guy that can step back, shoot the three. He's good at rolling off the pick and stepping back. He can either attack the rim, step back, take the three, opening lanes for his, for his teammates, as we've seen in some of those highlights with Tevi and Jones. Good off the pick and roll. But this is a guy who also can protect the rim. I mean, we're talking a lot about offense, but another big thing with that the Seabears are looking for with this bigger lineup is to get the defensive protection at the rim. And this is a guy who has the athleticism. He's an athletic big. And if you look at his highlights, there's a lot of these blocks that he comes up with, they're not necessarily contested face to face. He's a guy that can, trail and come back and make that play from behind. Almost looks like he might be out of the play altogether. And then he comes out of nowhere to block it. So he's a guy that I think is going to have a big role as well, particularly early. But he's playing with, some big players. Simi Chateau is still not here. He has not arrived at training camp. He's still playing out in Greece. So he's likely to miss at least a game or two as he, transitions from his Greek league play to coming back to the CBL. And once he's here, Chateau is going to have a massive presence. As I mentioned in the prior podcast, and I mentioned throughout, my appearances on some of the local media outlets, he's a guy that I expect to have a huge impact simply because in 2023, he was a huge pain for everybody in the CEBL playing with Calgary. He's a great Canadian talent and he's going to be an immediate impact, but it's also just adding to an arsenal of bigs that, we've never seen with the Seabears, so far. Solomon Young, another guy who's strong. He's the biggest body that I've seen so far, in training camp. They have a great rotation between the two guys with G League experience between him and Williams. But then there's Kyler Filowich, right? Kyler Filowich is going to be making his CEBL debut, his pro debut, like outright pro debut at home in his hometown on Friday as a Winnipeg Seabear. And, we've talked to him in the past and he's made it, clear that before this all happened, he wanted to be part of the, of the Seabears, and he'd been to games. He had a great run with Wofford this year where, they had their Cinderella. He led that in terms of, winning the conference, getting the MVP, having that appearance in March Madness. He was alongside Simon Hildebrandt, two Winnipeggers for the first time in the same year go to the NCAA tournament to play in March Madness. So great experience for him. He's coming off on a huge high, but he's a rookie. Right. And that's the one big thing. He's a rookie. There's an adjustment period, even from the NCAA and playing at the highest level and playing some of the best teams, going to March Madness. He's still got to settle into a whole new system very quickly, fresh off a season, fresh off of exams. I mean, he's still a student, right? He just graduated or he just finished up. He's about to graduate. But this is his first pro experience. And there's a huge opportunity for him here, too. Don't get me wrong. Just because he's a rookie doesn't mean he's not going to play. And, I had a chance to talk to him as well about the excitement of playing at home and getting that home opener under his belt and the opportunity of his first pro contract and what he has to prove. Let's take a look at that story from the training camp reports, all sponsored by our good friends at Holt Dental. Appreciate them coming on board for the training camp coverage, but let's take a listen to that. Excitement is building as we draw closer to Friday's season opener against Edmonton. But it will be an extra special night for Kyler Filowich, who's making his professional debut right at home.
I got parents, grandma, girlfriend, all that coming out. So it'll be cool to play in front of all of them for once, in a long time.
Filowich recently wrapped up his final year of college at Wofford, where he led a Cinderella run to a Southern Conference title, earning MVP honors and a spot in March Madness. But as dominant as he was in college, the jump to the pros is a whole new challenge.
College is obviously a different game, more professional feel here. obviously more talent, more athleticism than we face on any given night, even in the States. So.
Kyler's really intelligent. He's super physical, so I love that about him. You know, former football player, so he loves contact. He does a lot of traditional five-man things well. He is an underrated passer, so he's made a really great impression with his passing. And of course, every time he steps to the free throw line, we love the Rick Barry free throws.
Bilowich gained some notoriety last season after working with NBA legend Rick Barry to perfect his unique free throw style, a technique that's already a hit with his new teammates.
It's a little bit different, obviously. It's obviously something so unique and different that not many people do, so not many people get to see it. So when they do, yeah, I get a little excited, but it's cool, I guess. It's nice.
As a physical forward, consistent free throw shooting will be a big asset as he continues to carve out his role.
Coming out, doing whatever I can to help the team. You know, I'm not completely sure what form that'll take at the start, but just I know I'll get chances and I'll go out there and give it my all. So that's what I'm looking forward to do for the team this year.
We try to put a rookie in a position where they don't have much responsibility. They can just go out and play, and the responsibility will be in production. Hey, we're not expecting this guy to go out and get 10 and 10 for us. And then anything he gives us is a bonus.
And while he's enjoying the challenge of his first pro training camp, he's most excited to step onto the Canada Life Centre floor as a Winnipeg Sea Bear for the first time on Friday. So now the making impressions in training camp over. It's now time to shift from training camp to season mode. And the season's getting underway against the Stingers, a team that has been really tough to play against for the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Really one of the, a one-sided rivalry, if you will, particularly when we look at the home record for Winnipeg between these two teams. They finally beat them last year. But this is a team that, they come to Winnipeg and they could be a totally new team. They've been in situations where they've come off losses, but where they've come off wins as well. And they whatever it is, teams struggle to win in Winnipeg. You can count on one hand the teams that have won in Winnipeg, and Edmonton might have more than all the other teams combined. At least it's very close. And I don't really have an explanation. When we've asked head coach Jordan Baker about it, he's talked about, the atmosphere and, bringing out the competitive spirits. And I've heard multiple coaches, over the last two seasons talk about how, Winnipeg has become the destination, right? It's the one game that everybody's looking forward to, that's circled on everybody's calendar, and it can bring the best out of other teams, right? So, in a way, as much as it's a home advantage and it really helps push the Sea Bears, it seems, numerous times in the last 2 years, they're also getting the best of other teams because this is an atmosphere that, closely replicates what you'll see in the NBA. There's an energy there. It's big time, right? And you get those performances. And Jordan Baker's talked about that a little bit, where he talks about, the fact that they can come in and there's that atmosphere and they respond to it. But they're also doing something right. Like they've been able to solve the Sea Bears in very important moments too. I mean, if you look back to the first year, Winnipeg needed to beat Edmonton for a bye to the quarterfinals for the playoffs. They lose that game. It ends up becoming a play-in game that they still host against Edmonton. So Edmonton is there and they beat them, forcing Winnipeg to play in that first round playoff. And it's against Edmonton, who fought their way to earn that spot. And then they have to come back to Winnipeg six days later, and then they beat them again, right? So this is a team that's really had a number on this team. And now you're coming into a new season, and you get that challenge straight on. I like the challenge. I think it's great that they're playing a team that they've struggled against. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that game. Chad Posthumous will have his number retired by the team ahead of the game. There's a ceremony earlier in the day where they're renaming a street or a portion of a street and honoring Chad as well. There's going to be a lot of emotion in the building. So, everything in check. This is going to be a great test for the Sea Bears in the first game. And then it's up against Calgary. So you're going to see two of the stronger teams. Edmonton is coming off a loss. The season's already underway. Edmonton and Calgary played that first game earlier this week. Calgary beat them 86-84, which was a close game. Jameer Nelson Jr. Going to be a star in this league, just like his dad was a star in the NBA. Really impressed with what I've seen here. But to get a better understanding of what happened in that game and what to expect this game, I think it's time we bring in Paul Sir. He's the color analyst for the Edmonton Stingers. As I mentioned earlier, he's was the director of Basketball Alberta for a long time. Now he's heavily involved in 3x3. His son, Steve Sir, also the general manager of the Edmonton Stingers, played 3x3 or plays 3x3, I should say. He still plays 3x3 nationally and for the national team. And actually, he got to know Chad really well because Chad and Steve Sir were teammates on this national team. And he's gone through some experiences where, he might relate to what's happened here, not only to the community, but the family of, the posthumous family of losing, someone that's had such a big impact and, in such a short time. Of his 33 years of life and just, how hard it can be. But, it was a great interview through and through. You're going to get great insight into the game on Friday. Learn a little bit more about the Stingers coming to town. And, again, as we promised to share those stories of Chad throughout the season, this is one of those times where you're going to hear some great words on Chad and, what he meant to people outside of Winnipeg and Manitoba and understand just how big his impact was. So here it is, our interview with Paul Sir, the color analyst of the Edmonton Stingers. Paul, first off, thanks for making the time for joining us here on Target Score Winnipeg.
Joe, it's a pleasure. I have a great deal of admiration for the Manitoba and Winnipeg basketball community and culture, so it's a real thrill to be here.
Well, we appreciate that because you were the king. You still are the king of Alberta basketball. Your former role was head of Alberta basketball. Now you're involved on 3-on-3, and we're going to get to all of that because your background is incredibly interesting and you're incredibly accomplished in the sport. But when we narrow in on the Edmonton Stingers for the 2025 season, they've already played a game. They're coming in with one game under their belt when Winnipeg opens their season on Friday. And it was a great game in terms of entertainment, a very close game against Calgary, always interesting when it's a battle of Alberta. But looking at the team, now that you've got to see them in action, what was your initial, reaction to the game itself? What were your initial impressions of the team after seeing a full game?
Well, one of the interesting facets, as you're aware, Joey, is with the CEBL, it's hard to get off to a start in this seventh season and think you have a real sense of what this team's going to look like by mid-season. Because A, it's game one, B, they've had a week to get to prepare, and C, other players are going to be entering into the equation for franchises across the league, and the Stingers are certainly no exception in that respect. Having said that, it was, as you said, a very entertaining first game. There were first game moments, but more often the skill level of the players. And I think Doug and I talked about that on the broadcast, is what happens in situations like this is you don't have a chance as a coach to put in a lot of sophisticated actions and defensive strategies, etc. So you're going to rely on the training and the skills of the players. And I think in the Stingers case, that came through loud and clear. And I really like some of the players that they brought in this year because this is a completely different team with very meaningful, but not a lot of carryover. Like I think the Stingers have sort of built their foundation on over the first 6 seasons in the CEBL.
And it's a much different look without Brody Clark. That was the one thing I noticed watching the game. A guy that's been there pretty much, I think, since the start, and was the heartbeat of that team. And it was a little weird watching it without it, but and it seemed at times, and you'd have a better idea than I did, but it did seem at times, that was something that was missing in terms of that consistency as they're trying to figure out the offense without having a guy that was so active on both ends of the floor, really, but particularly on offense.
It's interesting you say that because I fully agree with you. Brody was extremely active, whether he was involved directly in the offensive play. He was always crashing the offensive boards, very physical on the defensive side, very much had his presence felt on, like you're stating very correctly, Joey, on both ends of the court. I think the thing with this particular team, they have some things they haven't had before. Sean East is since Xavier Moon, I think he's one of the most intriguing point guards that we've had here. Now, when Elijah Miller gets in as well, I think that really shores up and makes a great 1-2 potential combination of, I guess, for the CEBL and all pro leagues, kind of an undersized guard pair, but very, very highly skilled, explosive, quick, etc. but they have shooters in Bandu and Lindsay, who also, I still struggle with the names. Let me get here. There we go. Scotty Lindsay from Northwestern. They've got really good shooters, quality shooters. So now they're going to be able to, I think, have a different look. And one thing I think the Stingers, even though statistically it doesn't look like they were not a real good shooting 3-point team, they actually statistically are pretty good. But they were you never felt like they were, I don't know that they were at their best in the fourth quarter. And that is something that I think we want to see this year from this team. Is they've got some knockdown shooters. If they can run the actions that shooters like that need, I think they have a chance of fixing that problem that they've had in the past.
Well, Scotty Lindsay, great acquisition there because he played for Winnipeg last year.
Yes.
And similarly, in his first game, he was hot from three. I mean, that's what he's known for, right? He's a 3-point marksman. So you have that 3-point specialist kind of guy. I liked the Bandu signing as well. And I found yesterday he was a little bit quiet, and that might be just a product, as you say, of getting used to the offense and everything else. But Aaron Rooms is another guy, came off the bench. I thought he played really well yesterday. But you're looking at it as a team this is a team that's been very consistent for a bunch of years, right? Edmonton is always guaranteed to be a competitor in the West. And they've been a real pain in the butt for Winnipeg, and it's kind of funny. I'm looking at this game on the opening night where they're playing Calgary, and Calgary's kind of had their number in terms of the
Isn't that interesting?
It really is. And then they come to Winnipeg, and I don't know what it is about Winnipeg for this team. I've asked Jordan Baker about it, and he's like, yeah, it's exciting, and we get up for the crowds and that. But they're the only team that consistently comes into Canada Life Center and beats the Winnipeg Sea Bears, aside for one game last year, and it felt like it was a weight off the shoulders because every other team that comes in here, you can count on one hand the amount of teams that have won a game at Canada Life Center, and I think Edmonton probably has more than all the other ones combined. So when you're looking at this game ahead on Friday, it's going to be an emotional game, simply because, and we'll get into this with the honoring of Chad Posthumous, and it's opening day for the Winnipeg Sea Bears. It's a hot ticket in the city of Winnipeg. But what do you expect from them coming off a loss? The season's a little bit longer this year, extended by 4 games. But as you well know, dropping 0-2 in a short season probably carries a little more weight than, say, an 82-game season in the NBA. So what are you expecting in terms of the corrections here and what they might be able to take advantage of with Winnipeg playing there first?
Well, they have a game under their belt. They now know at game speed what the league is like with this group of players. So you're right. You're absolutely right, Joey. There is a bit of an advantage that the Stingers have coming in. They've had a good vibe when they've come in and they've played the Sea Bears. And like you said, it is interesting, and you really see it across all sports. There are just certain cities that just seem to have this the mojo, this karma that seems to come out. And the Stingers so far have been very successful in Winnipeg. I remember last year they were playing poorly. I think they got routed by Calgary the week before and really played poorly. And then they came into Winnipeg, and yet there was no recognition of who that Stinger team was. They were so much better coming in against the Sea Bears. Now, very different lineups, like we were talking before. No Brody. All the stabilizing factor, of course, is Jordan Baker, who is a great player, university, professionally 3x3, and certainly in the CEBL. So he brings that pedigree with him. He'll have the team ready to go. I know what I love about this is you get these CEBL veterans that have been in 1 or 2 cities. They come into a new city, so they bring that experience. Everybody's used to the rivalries. Jameer Nelson Jr. the other night was his first CEBL game, and he's talking about he loves this interprovincial rivalry already. The vibe is out there. So certainly going into Winnipeg, I think Edmonton will be ready. They're going to try to take advantage of the fact that Winnipeg hasn't played, get off to a strong start, and see if they can get a little better feel for each other on the court.
What is it about Jordan Baker that's allowed him to see, a pretty successful start to his coaching career? Because as you said, he played not that long ago, and I laughed too because with Brody Clark last year, asking him about that. You go from being a player with this guy and a teammate to now you're coach. And I remember him saying, he's like, best coach I ever had, because he knows what I'm thinking before I can say it, kind of thing, just because of our chemistry as players. But when you have a guy that's so fresh off of his playing career, he's still really young, really, digging his feet in coaching, and he's got a lot of coaching experience for a young guy. But what is it that gives you confidence in his coaching abilities?
Can you imagine growing up with Trix Baker and Doug Baker as your parents? Trix, legendary coach for the University of Alberta Pandas, national champion, 2 national championships, I believe. Doug was a very, very good coach for a long time, assisting with the U of A, head coach over at MacEwan, and always involved in basketball. His record as the leading scorer in Golden Bear history was broken by his son. So, the pedigree is, I guess, what I'm getting at. The pedigree is incredible. And I think what he did really well, he being Jordan, is he transitioned and prepared himself for phasing into becoming a coach by being an assistant at the University of Alberta for several years under Barnaby Craddock, who has recently left for Simon Fraser University. So he had that experience. Then he phased in at NAIT, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. And then he just really prepared himself. And the thing about Jordan, he coaches like he plays. It's very definite. His effort is 100%. Everything's black and white. This is the way it's going to be, while still having a great sense for the game and an incredible basketball IQ. So I think it's kind of a unique life journey leading to this point, but also I think you really have to factor in the preparation that went into this and the sort of systematic way he got ready to become a head coach. And like you said, he's off to a good start.
Yeah, and I have to ask, I meant to ask about this earlier, but you mentioned Sean East earlier. That was my first look at Sean East, and quite impressive, and you gave him pretty high praise. When you start throwing him in the same conversation as Xavier Moon, even only after one game, that's a pretty big shadow to kind of break through. But looking at his stat line, 7 for 17 from the field. He had 22 points total. Offense went through him. It seems like they found their guy in terms of the offense going through him, that can score, that can facilitate. But what impresses you most about this guy?
I really love his feel. And, certainly I'm not trying to compare him to Xavier from the stand. I mean, like you said, that's the Stay Puft Marshmallow guy in Ghostbusters shadow that you're casting there. So, I mean, you don't want to be put in that shadow, but what impressed me, he's one of the players, you look for that it factor, that interpretive factor, that ability to read a defense. And I remember watching him at Missouri, and he was good at Missouri. The Romanian league, it's not Spain, but it's a very good league, a very physical league. So to go out there in your first year and average nearly 26 a game in that league tells me the kid can play, and that he can play at a high level in the FIBA style of play. And he missed shots that I know he would love to have back, because there were 3 or 4 shots that I thought were money, and they just didn't go in. So I just think he's going to be a highly productive guy. And what I love about him, offensive point guard, but he is really good at finding the seam in the defense, breaking it down, and finding an open teammate. And I even commented on the broadcast, I believe, he doesn't only find you, but he finds you at the right time, and he puts it on your hands right where you need it to get your shot in a maximum way. And I think it was with he and Scotty Lindsay. That's what you want to see. So I think Sean East brings that it factor that really is special, and I think will be very, 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 very impactful for the Stingers.
We haven't even touched on Nick Hornsby, right? Here's a guy that comes back year after year, has really become kind of like I always felt like that was the Batman and Robin, right? With him and Brody, playing with each other and, kind of becoming he's said it on the record, like he feels like Edmonton is home. I know he's from California, but he's really settled in, kind of like Brody came from Toronto and, settled into Edmonton, kind of felt like home, to the point when you hear they're not from Edmonton, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot. But, in terms of a culture standpoint and consistency, especially this year when you've lost a pretty impactful player, does his impact have a bigger stretch or a bigger reach now, just because he kind of becomes the core of the team from a culture standpoint? That's where I'm coming from.
Well, actually, I think that's a great summary, Joey. I really do. Nick's an old spirit. Like, like he's 28 years old, going on 55 in terms of his life experience, and I mean that in the most flattering way. He's a mature individual. He's a father. His wife and children are here with him. Edmonton, Edmonton is a special place from this vantage point. When Xavier Moon came here, he felt right at home, and had Xavier not been in that kind of middle, 10-day contract, two-way contract situation that he had with the Clippers, I think he'd still be playing here today, honestly, because he loves this city. And and I think the Stingers have done a real good job of creating that grounded culture. I don't know if you've watched Celtic City, but that
I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a bit of a Celtics fan, so yeah, I've watched that.
You've watched it, so yeah. I didn't even I didn't see Rondo's name, but now that you say it, I'm excited that you're into the Celtics. But there's an element of that, and of course, there's that's where the comparison stops. But there's an element of community that I think really has resonated with certain players, Brody being one, that, as you mentioned, Xavier being another, and of course now with Nick. So to bring that guy back, and he can still play, like he can still really flat out play. I always use the term Swiss Army knife. He's not a specialist. He's a point forward, point center kind of player. You can guard all 5 positions. But the most important thing is he really, I think, emanates and expects his teammates to play Stinger basketball. And that's built around selflessness, team first, win, and really, I think, creates a stable environment for the younger players that come in and makes them feel like they're part of something pretty special.
And before I let you go, I do have to ask you a couple of questions about the 3-on-3. So, some history for a long time, and this is where you and I met when I was working in Edmonton. You were the director at Alberta Basketball, and then you made the switch over to 3-on-3 or 3x3. Never sure which one to call it because the kids will say 3x3.
3x3 still doesn't roll off the tongue. I understand that. It's still 3-on-3 to me too. But
same. And I was there last year at your World Tour stop, and it was amazing. That was the first time that I really got a full effect of, like how quick the games are in the tournaments. But how did you find yourself in that realm, going from the 5-on-5 game provincially to taking, a more international role with the 3x3 game that is really exploding and kind of giving another avenue to players to extend their careers?
Well, I think that's a great way to frame it, Joey. It does give them another avenue to extend their careers. But my goal is that I really want in 5 years for players to think, you know what, I can play 5-on-5 or 3x3. I want them to see them as both complementary and individual, and a choice to be made about which pathway you may want to go. I think it increases the opportunities for players exponentially, both male and female. I also think it is a tremendous life lesson opportunity builder for kids because of its ease of play and its pace of play and its ability to, and I think that's a cornerstone of the FIBA 3x3 model, is they want this to be a street urban kind of sport, and you want to see kids out on the playground playing 3x3. But in a real quick summary, I played my high school coach put a 3-on-3 league together one summer. When I was in college, my college coach, we did a 3-on-3 league. I then started running a 3-on-3 league. I played and coached for, I've done it for a long, long time, always used 3-on-3 in practices. And then when I heard in 2010 that FIBA was going to designate 3x3 as a sport, I wedged my way right in the middle of it. I went to the first meeting in North America. I kind of crashed the party and said, I want in on this. And we started running significant 3x3 events in 2011. We sent the first teams at Alberta Basketball to FIBA events starting in 2012. Canada Basketball didn't have the funding. Alberta Basketball, we raised the money to pay for the teams to travel. So Team Edmonton became a reality. We provided opportunities and started to get the Plouffe sisters playing with the men in both pickup and in tournaments in 3x3. So yeah, I'm all in. I formed with a not-for-profit called the 3x3 Basketball Association. We run this Hoop City 3x3 event July 31st to August 3rd in West Edmonton Mall this year. We'll have all in both categories, men and women, top 4 finishers in the Olympics will be there this year. Plus, we're running qualifying events for men and women. One, in fact, is a Winnipeg team that came from the Sea Bears last year. And it's a long story, but they won the event last year. They're coming back this year. And we're going to have teams, we hope, from all over Canada competing to try to earn their way into an international FIBA event. So I'm a big believer. Like you said, once you watch 3x3, you love it. Once you play it, you love it. And what we want to do is interact with people all across the country who have the same passion that I do, and get more and more communities buying into 3x3 and turn this into, I think, like I said, a complementary stream, complementary ecosystem of 5-on-5. As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this thing. So,
well, and as you're saying it, like wedging your way through, I feel like that's exactly when the CBL was coming to Winnipeg. I was just like on everybody's email, LinkedIn, like, how do I get involved? So I understand where you're coming from, and I will give it the plug for those listening or watching. If you've not been to a 3x3 event, do yourself a favor and go. It is a very entertaining brand of basketball. So much different from the 5-on-5 in terms of the event. And it's addicting. It's awesome. So go out and see it. But through all that, you got to know Chad Posthumus a little bit.
Yes.
Chad being a national team member with 3x3, playing with your son, Steve.
Yes.
Through this show this year, we've decided that we're trying to, give our tribute to Chad, talking with guests to share a story and things like that. When you think of Chad Posthumus, and all that he's accomplished in the 33 years of his life, what sticks out to you, Chad? Is there a story or a moment or something that you remember about him, that sticks out to you?
Two things. I became very aware of Chad when he, I believe, led the nation in rebounding in his senior year in NCAA Division I basketball. I always was a big fan of Chad. I was always ticked that the Stingers didn't sign Chad, but I understand the main reason they didn't sign him is because he wanted to go and play at home. But I always liked Chad's spirit of competitiveness. He was in the game, he was battling, and it really stood out to me when I believe his first game for Ottawa, I believe he had like 20 and 20 in that game. And it was like he came in with a bang. And I always thought that Chad had a presence on the court as a big, that you just couldn't take your eyes off him because he pursued the rebounds. He pursued rebounds really, really well. He went to the basket hard. He was chippy. And I love that in a player. So he's always competing. He's beaking. He was in there. He was fighting. And as someone who lost one of our sons at 38 years of age, my heart goes out to his family. It certainly resonates with us what they have lost, and you never get over it. You try to find a way forward to learn to live with it. And the fact that Chad affected so many people in his young life in such a meaningful, positive, and I would dare say powerful way. It was a tribute to the spirit that this young man had, and the flame went out way too early and so tragically and unexpectedly. And so our hearts go out to the Winnipeg sports fans community specifically, and most importantly, his family. And we wish them nothing but God's blessings and healing as they go through their journey of grief, and wish nothing more than for the and appreciate, I know, that what the Sea Bears will do to honor his memory.
That was so well put, Paul. Thank you so much for that. And our sympathies to you as well. I know that's it's not easy to talk about, especially with your experience. So I do appreciate you sharing that story, and appreciate you coming on the show, Paul. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. You do a great job out there in Edmonton with the Stingers and just basketball in general. And we'll certainly have you back on the show. And I hope you enjoy the game on Friday.
Looking forward to it, Joey. And I will echo those same comments to you as well. And I look forward to getting you on my show. that I have every weekend in Edmonton and on our podcasts. And we'll keep being part of the groundswell to talk up the CEBL and basketball in general across our country.
Looking forward to it. I'm all in. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Joey.
A great interview there with Paul, sir. Just to touch on, what he said about Chad, I think he was bang on, and, gives a little insight to just how impactful Chad was to a lot of people, right? A positive influence, a positive impact, and just a great community leader. And I mean that in a larger sense, not just here in Winnipeg, though he was a huge, advocate for Winnipeg basketball and, even just the city of Winnipeg. But, he represented the city and the province very, very well on a national and international stage. And just a reminder, there will be the ceremony. So if you're going to the game, you're going to want to get there early. There's going to be a number retirement ceremony and an honoring of Chad before the game. I imagine it's going to be very emotional for everyone. But it's something that you're not going to want to miss as we honor the life of Chad Posthumous. I'll be calling that game on play-by-play, so if you're not able to go to the game is available on TSN Plus, CEBL Plus. Christian O'Mell, who was the play-by-play last year on the stream, is also still the play-by-play guy, doing it for CJOB, so it will be available on the radio too. So if you're out at the cabin or whatever the case may be, you can tune in on the radio, and Christian O'Mell will have your play there, and the ceremony will be patched in for sure, as we understand, or as we let the audience who are not able to attend tune in that way. So I hope you're able to tune in or come in person. It's expected to be a sellout. Hearing it should actually be the new attendance record for the CEBL, which is absolutely exciting. So hats off to everybody there. And as you heard, not going to be easy. Edmonton's played well. They're a new look team, a little bit smaller. They've got some new players to look out for, and it's the post Brody Clark era. So we will see how how Winnipeg responds with their new look team, much bigger. And I think we're going to get our first real look of what this team is capable of, what it's trying to accomplish in terms of its playing style and things like that after game one. It's going to be exciting nonetheless. I know everybody's been waiting for the season to come around, and even once Target Score got back up and running, we got a lot of texts and messages in the DMs saying how exciting it is, and how it feels like the season's here. It is here. Training camp officially over. It is now the 2025 season, a big year for the Sea Bears. As we'd mentioned in earlier podcasts, this is the year that Winnipeg is hosting championship weekend. The Sea Bears have a bye to the West Final, so they are automatically in the semifinals, essentially, for this. They're one game away from the championship in August. Now, as I've mentioned before, the teams in the last 2 years that have been through this, last 3 years really, have not done well, right? The last three hosts have not had a great season, and none of them have won that game. So, as Alex Campbell had said last year, talked to him even this year in the first training camp report, again, available on Joey Slattery TV on Instagram and Target Score WPG, talks about how it could be a trap. Guys get complacent, it's there. It's the carrot that's dangling in front of you. So we'll see how they respond. Mike Taylor's talked about being in the moment and making sure they're staying in the present to build towards that and ensure that they stay competitive throughout the season. It all starts Friday, 7:30 tip-off against the Edmonton Stingers at home at Canada Life Center. Basketball's back in Winnipeg. I'm excited for the season. Excited to see you all out there. As always, if you see me at the game, give me a wave. Love talking with all of you guys and, saying hi and getting your thoughts on the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing you out there. Enjoy the game, whether you're there in person or tuning in on CEBL Plus, TSN Plus, or CJOB. Looking forward to having you along and looking forward to seeing you all again next week. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the home opener. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.